Hi, and welcome to Swedish Plantguys. Have you just bought your first plant or are you considering buying your first plant? Then this video is for you. We will give you 15 simple tips on how to make your first plants thrive. Cue the intro. Number 1. Always buy the plant that has the most amount of starters, vines, stalks or branches. If you have these two plants standing in the store next to each other, buy the one that has the most amount of starters. What I mean by that, the most amount of vines in this case. Now, this plant here has only 2 vines, one here and one here. This one, on the other hand, has 3 vines coming out from the bottom of the pot here. So buy this one. Even if this should look a little bit denser or it might have a little bit longer vines, this is the plant that will give you the best and fullest plant in the future. And also, if the plant looks like this, Fertilizer here, you can go in and look at how many stems and branches are there. And if it's cut off like this one is here, it's actually cut off here. And then you have a lot of branches coming out from that point. Make sure to choose the Fertilizer that has the most amount of branches. Number 2, take a look at the roots of the plant. Now, this can be quite unpopular with the store owners. So if you are not sure, then go and ask the owners of the store or ask the staff to show you the roots of the plant, because everything depends on the roots. No matter how lush or nice or fantastic the leaves or the foliage of your plant is, if you don't have enough roots, you will get problems. So we always recommend take a look at the roots. Now what you do is that you just pick up the plant, then you can try and hold the foliage like this, then slightly just try and loosen the outer pot here, the pot from the soil, just by pushing on the pot here. If it's really hard, then you can try and just wiggle it a little bit, just don't harm the plant, just take it easy, and it should come off. Now, there could be some roots coming out of the pot here as well. That's just a good thing. But if you have a lot of roots here, you cannot take off the pot. But then you also know that this plant has a lot of roots. But here we only have a small indication that there are coming roots out. So I need to check and see what it looks like. And it looks like this. This is exactly what it should look like when you buy a new plant. There should be an abundance of roots all over the pot. If you take this out and the soil is just starting to fall off, then pick another plant or buy it somewhere else, because you need to have a quality plant with good roots. Number 3, always check your plants before buying them by looking at the leaves. Now, take a look at the leaves so that there are no discolorations, black spots, red spots, or pests on it. So take a look at the outside of the leaf or the upper side of the leaf. Make sure that it looks perfect, but also take a look at the underside of the leaves as well. This is usually where the pests hide, if there are any pests on it. And of course, take a look at the stems as well, so that they look as they should. The plant should be perfect when you buy it, because it has been standing in the greenhouse, it has been given everything it wants. So if it looks bad then it's not for you. Pick another plant that looks better. Number 4, always wait a couple of weeks or a month before repotting a new plant that arrives to your home. Now the reason is quite simple. That plant is usually quite stressed. It has been moved a lot. It has been moved from the greenhouse to the store at the store it hasn't been given what it wants because no one can take care of it there, perhaps. Then you get it, you move it again, and it arrives at your house. And it's not the same in your house as it was in the greenhouse or in the store. So it can be quite stressed. So going in and going through a repot at that stage will only make it worse. So wait for the repot at least a couple of weeks, up to a month or maybe even 2 months before you do that repot, and you have a higher success. Number 5, always repot in a slightly larger pot. What I mean by that, if you have a plant that stands in this size of a pot and you need to repot, you go up 1 or 2 sizes like this. Never ever go to this. Now the reason for this is that when you repot in a large container like this, it will hold a lot of water, all of that soil will, and it will hold it for a very long period of time. That means that the roots could be harmed or potentially get root rot because the soil doesn't dry quickly. But if you move to just a slightly larger pot like this, you have new soil, you have new energy for the roots, but it will dry out quicker, so you won't have any problems. Number 6, always try and use something that adds drainage to your standard planting soil. I have a standard planting soil here. It usually looks something like this. It's heavily peated. There are very, very small grains on the sand and the soil here. That means that this soil will absorb and hold a lot of water, and it will hold it for a very long period of time. So to make it even better for the roots, we mix that standard planting soil with something that adds drainage. Now, I have 3 different types you can use here. You have, for instance, leca pebbles that look like this. You can mix that up with the standard planting soil. You have perlite that looks like this. And you have pumice that looks like this. If you mix this in a ratio somewhere in between 70 to 80% of standard planting soil and 20 to 30% of any of these substrates here, you will get a very good mixture that will have good drainage. So it will help your roots to grow even better. Number 7, always, and I cannot stress this enough, always use drainage holes in your pots. If you're not using a self-watering system, use drainage holes. This is drainage holes, that you have holes in the bottom of the pot here. Now usually it means that you have an inner pot, a plastic inner pot, something like this, inside of an outer pot that perhaps looks a little bit better than this. What that drainage hose does is that it removes all of the excess water. When we water our plants, a lot of that water will be sucked up and absorbed by the soil, but not all of it. So that excess water actually goes down into the bottom of the pot. If you have drainage holes, it will go out from that pot. But make sure that you look inside of the outer pot to see that you don't have water standing there, the excess water down there. Remove that every time you watered, because you only want the soil here to be moist, no excess water. That water will kill your plants. Most tropical indoor plants does not like that. So use drainage holes and remove the excess water. Number 8, all indoor tropical plants wants a lot of light. I'll say it again. All indoor tropical plants wants a lot of light. Even if you've heard that the plant you've bought are a so-called low light plant. That only means that that plant can withstand a darker placement. It does not want a darker placement. It can withstand it and it can survive in those conditions. For instance, we have the CC plant here. I have 2 different varieties. the normal Samioculca samifolia. This is a Samioculca samifolia sensi. Both of these are so-called low-light plants. They are extreme survivors in low light. But this is not a plant that wants low light. It actually wants a lot of light. The more light you give it, the more it will grow, the bigger, the thicker it will become. But it will survive in low light. So you need to know this, because if something goes wrong, then make sure to move your plant to a lighter spot. Now, be aware though, because a light position doesn't mean that it gets direct sunlight. What I mean is indirect sunlight, a lot of indirect sunlight. All indoor tropical plants love that. Number 9, you have to know that most indoor tropical plants cannot withstand direct sunlight over a prolonged period of time. In the northern hemisphere where we are now here in Sweden, that means that all southern windows can be a problem. So make sure to check if your plant can withstand direct sunlight before placing it somewhere where it gets a lot of direct sunlight. Number 10, feel the soil before giving your plant any more water. Now, the most common question we get on this channel is, how much water should I give my plant? And we can never, ever give you an answer to that, because there are so many different things to consider there. Where have you placed it? What type of a plant is it? What's the humidity like? What's the temperature like? Is it in direct sunlight? Is it not in direct sunlight? How much light is it getting? Well, you get it. So we always say, how do we know when to water? Well, we try to feel the soil of the plant. Use your finger and feel down into the soil in between 1 and 2 inches, which is about 2.5 to 5 centimeters. When that soil is dry, you can water your plant again. This is the best advice I can give you on how much water or when you should water your plants. Feel the soil. Number 11, patience. You need to have patience when it comes to indoor tropical plants. Know that plants do not grow all the time. They can have long periods of time where you can't see anything happen. Now, usually they have 2 active periods in the year, at least if you live somewhere where you have seasons, because even indoors the plants can feel those seasons. It's depending on the light, the temperature and the humidity. So in springtime we have our first active periods. Most plants are active in spring. They grow and grow and grow, but then they have a small dormancy period in the middle of the summer. That's because it gets a lot of light, a lot of heat, the humidity is high, which means that they have to focus all energy on just transporting water to the leaves at all times. So it's not growing. Then you have autumn. Then it's time to grow again. And usually it doesn't mean that it grows a lot of new leaves. It can mean that it grows a lot of new roots. Because even if it's inside, it's actually trying to prepare for winter. And it's doing that by using the nutrients that it has to create more roots and prepare for winter. And then when winter arrives, you have low humidity, not a lot of light. You have a little bit of lower temperatures. You can have some drafts inside of your house. Then it goes dormant and it doesn't grow at all over winter. So have patience. The CC plant here, for instance, it can actually have dormancy periods that lasts for 6 months, lasts for a year. I've even heard stories where it's dormant for over 2 years. It looks fine. You're watering it, you're giving it fertilizer as you should, but nothing is happening. Have patience. It will grow again. Number 12. We always recommend you to use a liquid fertilizer for your indoor plants. What I mean by that is that you have a fertilizer, you mix it up with water, and then you give it to your plants. The reason is simple, because you get straight access for the roots. The roots can get a hold of those fertilizers directly. Some people use some form of sticks they push into the soil. You can have pellets or other varieties, but they usually take a longer period of time for the roots to get a hold of those fertilizers. Now, when you use a liquid fertilizer like this and you add that to the water, never do what I just did. Always follow the instructions on the label you've bought. Because if you add too much fertilizer, you can actually harm the plant. If you're not adding enough, you can also get problems. So always follow the instructions. Number 13, always use a fertilizer or a liquid fertilizer only when the plant is active. That means that usually we use fertilizer in spring and in autumn, because in the middle of summer and in winter, the plant goes a little bit dormant. So if you continue adding fertilizer, you could potentially harm your plants. So use a fertilizer when the plant is active. It's showing you that it's growing. Number 14, we only use fertilizer when the plant is feeling good. Fertilizer is never the solution for a plant that is feeling bad. Usually 99.9 times out of 100, it's something else that is making that plant feel bad. So try and find that reason, correct that reason, and when the plant is feeling good again, you add fertilizer to make it grow even more. So last but not the least, number 15. If your plant is not feeling well, just follow these 4 simple steps and try to make it feel better. Number 1, check your plant for pests. That means going through the entire plant and trying to see if you can find something that shouldn't be there. Now, this Alocasia zebrina here has a couple of leaves that actually looks quite nice, but we have this leaf here that you can see that something is not right. And if we look even closer, we can see that it has spider mites on it. So number 1, check to see if you have pests. Number 2, move the plant from where you have it to a place where it gets more light. I don't mean direct sunlight, I mean indirect sunlight. So move it somewhere where it gets more light, and then you can keep an eye on it for the next days or couple of weeks. Number 3, make sure that the soil of your plant dries up completely at least one time. No matter what type of a plant you have, if it's feeling bad, you can see that something is wrong, move it to that lighter spot and then let it dry out before you water it again. Number 4, if the plant is not getting any better from doing this, then you have to take a look at the roots. Now, if the roots are black, brown, or if they have a distinctive smell to it, it doesn't smell good, then you should remove all of those roots and repot your plant. If the roots looks fine, then put it back into the pot again. Do not repot. But if you see that something is wrong, do a repot and then place it back to where it gets a lot of indirect sunlight. This should help your plant. Now, I hope this video has helped you as a beginner to just make your plants thrive. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps our channel a lot. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do. Hit the bell as well so you get a notification every time we put up something new. If you want even more, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where you can get sneak previews on upcoming videos and sometimes a little bit more. Now, until next time, hej då!